Imagine making a joke in 1884 about how cold northern Minnesota is, and then that joke becomes the name of a mine, a state park, and then a landmark physics experiment. Iron ore and particle physics. One changed what we know about the universe, the other built Minnesota's economy. We're hiking the 2.8-mile Miners Trail at Lake Vermilion-Soudan Underground Mine State Park, home to Minnesota's very first iron mine. The hiking club trail loops around the surface remains of this historic site, while the mine itself drops nearly half a mile underground, spanning 27 levels cut through ancient bedrock. In 1965, the mine was donated to the state and became a state park, and since the 1980s, the University of Minnesota has used the lower levels for physics research. Let's hit the trail, and no jokes, you never know, you might end up naming a state park or a physics experiment.
Whoa, you feel that? Cold air? Wow. Okay. I usually say, do we have smell-o-vision? I wish you had tempo-vision because it must be 40 degrees down there. It's cold. Like it's ice chest cold. Like I feel like somebody just opened a freezer door. Whoa.
While this video is always focused on the hike, you can't help but notice you're in a giant historical area, so make sure to save some time for the tours. The underground tours should be opening back up soon, but there is an above ground tour that is currently free. But yeah, all this stuff is basically right at the trailhead, so you can't resist exploring it. But let's go over the trail stats real quick. The trail is 2.8 miles long, or 4.5 kilometers, and has around 265 feet or 81 meters of elevation change. The bugs were moderate. You definitely want some bug spray for the mosquitoes. Overall, a very easy to navigate trail. It was wet and muddy in some places, but it was fine. As we hike the trail today, we're going to tell you the history of the Soudan mine. I did want to mention, though, make sure you have a map. You want to follow all these twists and turns, whether it's a paper map, whether it's all trails. There are some decisions to be made out on the trail, and if you make the wrong one, you will for sure be going the wrong way.
I don't know if this is the right way or not.
That's why I pulled up all trails.
It's not like it's hard to navigate or anything, but just make sure you know where you're going so you make all the right turns.
Interesting little shortcut.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of go up to the right.
There's going to be a couple things you're going to see everywhere you go on this trail. These beautiful, beautiful rocks. And we saw tons and tons and tons of mushrooms. This was the most mushrooms I've ever seen on a trail. But yeah, keep your eyes peeled for these beautiful striped rocks of all different colors. So as we get into the trail, let's get into the history of the Soudan mine. Long before the miners arrived, the Ojibwe people living in northeastern Minnesota, they knew about the region's rich iron ore deposits, and in 1863 they shared this knowledge with N.A. Posey, who was a blacksmith teaching his trade among them at the request of the U.S. government. The Ojibwe people gave Posey samples of the iron ore, which he passed on to a surveyor and civil engineer named George Stuntz. Intrigued, Stuntz performed a test blast in 1875 near the future site of the Soudan mine. The promising ore discovered was soon brought to the attention of Duluth businessman George C. Stone. What a fitting name. Setting into motion the events leading to Minnesota's first iron mine. This businessman, George C. Stone, realizes he's sitting on a virtual gold mine, or should we say iron mine, but he needs backing. He needs some scratch. So he turns to millionaire Pennsylvania investor Charlemagne Tower Sr. These names sound like they're pulled straight out of a Hollywood screenplay. Anyway, Tower had made his fortune in coal mining, and before committing, he sent his own experts like geologist Albert Chester to inspect the site. And at this time, they're doing surface mining. They're not digging down deep just yet because there's all this iron ore on the surface. And again, this other geologist, Albert Chester, was able to confirm that there is iron in those hills. With support from George C. Stone, investor Charlemagne Tower Sr. purchased key parcels of land in northeastern Minnesota, including an inactive railroad project, the Duluth and Iron Range Railway. This railway would eventually connect two harbors on Lake Superior directly to the Soudan mine, creating a vital link to transport iron ore through the region's swampy forest to shipping ports. And I can verify it had recently rained, and it was definitely a bit swampy in sections of this hike. So construction on the railway began in the summer of 1883, and then the following winter, skilled Cornish miners from Michigan arrived and started digging at the Soudan site, stockpiling ore until the railway was complete. And this is so funny. The mine's first superintendent, Elisha Morecombe, humorously named the site after the tropical Sudan region in Africa, contrasting it with Minnesota's harsh, cold winters. So again, somebody literally just making a joke is how the Sudan, as in Sudan, mine got its name. On July 30th, 1884, the Duluth and Iron Range Railway reached the Sudan mine ready to make history. The next day, nearly 3,000 tons of iron ore traveled by rail back to two harbors. Soon after, steamships Ironton and Helka carried the ore across the Great Lakes to Cleveland, where businessman George H. and Samuel P. Ely successfully sold it on behalf of Charlemagne Towers Minnesota Iron Company. As the mine proved profitable, a group of New York investors purchased the Minnesota Iron Company, merging it with Oliver Iron Mining Company, which ultimately became part of the giant U.S. Steel Corporation. Side note, the Ironton was a wooden schooner and was lost in a fatal collision with the steamer Ohio on Lake Huron in September of 1894, and the wreck was discovered in 2019, exceptionally well preserved, lying upright on the lake bed with its three masts still standing and even a tethered lifeboat visible. So that's really cool. The hard, dense iron ore at the Vermilion Range was extraordinary, even by mining standards. At Sudan, miners initially used open pit mining as long as the seam lay near the surface, but once they dug past 20 feet, safety concerns drove operations underground. And you'll see this when you hike the trail. I mean, you will see these dangerous, steep, sheer cliff open pit mines, and you'll understand that by the 1890s, surface mining had ceased entirely, and all the extraction took place beneath the earth. The Sudan mine extended through 27 levels, reaching a depth of roughly 2,341 feet, or 713 meters, so about half a mile below the surface. The miners used a specialized cut and fill method. They mined the ceiling and simultaneously raised the floor with leftover rock, keeping the tunnels consistently just 10 to 20 feet apart. So the iron formations, they ran as steep, nearly vertical columns through solid bedrock, so literal structural bracing was needed. So the miners would follow these pillars downward across multiple levels, and by the time the mine closed, over 50 miles of tunnels, drifts, and raises crisscrossed beneath the surface. That is crazy, 50 miles. The Vermilion Range was never as massive as the Mesabi to the southwest, but it was a reliable workhorse. It hit its peak in 1892 when it shipped around 500,000 tons of high-grade iron ore. It steadily delivered, and by the time the last load came out, the mine had produced over 15 million tons of iron ore. The last part of the mine to operate was shaft number 8, and when the mine shut down in 1962, U.S. Steel donated the site and over 1,200 acres to the state of Minnesota. In 1965, it was officially designated Sudan Underground Mine State Park, preserving the legacy of Minnesota's first iron mine and everything that came after. And as remarkable as the mining history is, it might not even be the most important thing that happened down here. The real legacy of Sudan could belong to the world of physics. You're about to see one of the weirdest things we've ever come across on a hike, but yes, it's a protractor randomly in the middle of the trail about 2 miles in. So we picked it up and then we hid it at the Vermilion Club where we had lunch. Great lunch, by the way. After the mine shut down, scientists saw a golden opportunity deep underground. In the late 1980s, the University of Minnesota turned shaft number 8 into a high-tech physics lab nearly half a mile below the surface. Why down there? Simple. There's less cosmic interference. The thick rock above blocks radiation, making it a perfect place to study the tiniest particles of the universe. And one of the biggest breakthroughs came from an experiment called Sudan 2. Sudan 2 ran from 1989 to 2001, and it helped prove that neutrinos, those ghost-like particles that pass through your body by the trillions every second, actually have mass. As we come up on the Hiking Club password, I want to thank everybody for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'm never going to show these passwords, y'all. I'm never going to reveal them. All right, on with the history. That was a huge surprise. For decades, scientists thought neutrinos were weightless, but Sudan 2 showed they change form as they travel, something they could only do if they had mass. That discovery changed what's in every physics textbook today, and it happened right here in an old iron mine in northern Minnesota. And Sudan didn't stop there. Starting in 2005, a project called MINOS shot neutrinos from a lab near Chicago straight through the Earth to a detector in this very mine. It helped confirm and sharpen what we know about how neutrinos move and change, and that's just one more chapter in a mine full of science stories. So this mine has not only a historic significance in terms of the first mine in Minnesota, it is also quite famous in the world of physics. And that's a wrap. The trail starts from the parking lot, and here we are with a short walk up the driveway back to the parking lot where the visitor center is. We didn't really like this last little bit because we don't enjoy hiking on the road with cars, but you got to get out there and do this hike to get the Hiking Club password. And it's a really cool walk through history. Amazing how much of an impact this little place had, and how much of an impact a joke about winter being cold had. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this one informative, and we'll see everybody out there hiking on the trails. Bye bye, y'all.